Hey, welcome back to another story time. Today we're going to read one of my favorite books from one of my favorite authors. This is called Fight Club. So let's get to the screen share. Please. There we go. Hopefully you can see that now. So Fight Club, you can see, was published in 1996. Think about what has happened in America leading up to 1996, or at least I guess 2001, right? We all know 9/11 is a defining event in American history, but really between 9/11 and maybe going back to Watergate or the end of Vietnam, there really isn't any major conflict within or without the United States. And so really the 80s and 90s was a pretty stable time. So Chuck Palahniuk, you can see his name there, born in 1962. He is still writing. In fact, I think just this year he published Fight Club 2, which is a graphic novel that takes the story a little bit further. He's a very prolific writer, meaning he writes a lot. In fact, there was a time there from about 2001 to like 2012 that he wrote a book almost once a year, which is crazy. So him and like Stephen King are kind of like the same when it comes to that. But obviously they write about totally different things. Palahniuk writes about pain, about sad things, about troubling things that are going on in our culture and our society. And he writes, his style is very minimalistic, if you can kind of imagine what that is. I've given you, if you've read other books, or even if you did task 3 of this class, there was some quotes from writers who would write like the perfect sentence. They would be like, a paragraph would be one sentence. Well, Palahniuk, some of his sentences are like 2 words. So he tries to boil things down into very minimalistic words. And because of that, he's very easy to read. You can read all of his books, I would guess. You can read all of his books fairly quickly, and they're all fairly short. So if you're interested in like Fight Club, you should check out some of his other books. Some are better than others, obviously. But he does have a very interesting writing style, and he writes about sad and painful things if you're into that. While we were going through this, I want you to think about maybe these questions and concepts. First of all, the book really is about a lot about materialism and consumerism, and what that means to you and our culture and how it drives us. And I'm wondering if social media is part of that now as well. It kind of goes to that second to last question, what do you value? So the book kind of analyzes that. What do you value? Do you value things? Or do you value what other people think of you? Or are you more interested in developing your own self-worth and how you see yourself and your own identity? So think about all those things. Gender is also an issue. It's you can just imagine by the title, Fight Club, it's a very masculine book, and tries to point out how the culture is very masculine, and the things that are more feminine traditionally are destroyed a lot of times in this book. So gender is an issue, and you'll see that here as well. And this last question that I want you to think about is like, do you follow? Are you a follower? Do you try to make your own path in life and do what you think is the right thing to do, or do you do what you're told to do? Do you think what you're told to think? Um, all those kinds of things. So let's get into the story. I'm not going to go in a lot of the details of the book. I'll just kind of tell you the overall story, and you'll get the idea of it. And many of you have seen the movie with Edward Norton and Brad Pitt. The movie is very close to what the book is. So, yeah, I'm not going to recommend the movie. I'd rather you read the book. I want to tell you this is one of the first parts of the book. And I'll read this to you. It says, warning, if you are reading this, then this warning is for you. Every word you read of this useless fine print is another second off your life. Don't you have other things to do? Is your life so empty that you honestly can't think of a better way to spend these moments? Or are you so impressed with authority that you give respect and credence to all that claim it? Do you read everything you're supposed to read? Do you think everything you're supposed to think? But what you're told to buy, what you're told to want? Get out of your apartment. Meet a member of the opposite sex. Stop the excessive shopping and quit your job. Start a fight. Prove you're alive. If you don't claim your humanity, you will become a statistic. You have been warned. And so the book begins with the narrator of the book, who we don't really know who it is. In the movie, I think the names Joe and Jack are kind of used in the movie and the book a little bit, but we don't really know who he is. We just know that he lives a very hectic life. He travels a lot for his job. He works a lot of hours. He lives a routine. Works, goes home and sleeps, goes back to work, goes home and sleeps. He makes a good living. He has money and all that stuff, but because of all the stress and the travel and the way he lives, he suffers from insomnia, which for those of you who don't know, insomnia is this the inability to sleep. And so we get this impression that the line between being awake and being asleep, because even when the narrator is awake, he seems to be like in a trance and not really focused on what's going on. And so this line between being asleep and being awake is very murky, very blurred. He thinks he's really suffering from this, and he wants the doctor to fix him, but the doctor's like, you should really figure out, you should learn about some people who are really suffering. And he suggests that he goes to a support group and just listens to the stories of people who are really suffering. And so he goes to a cancer support group and pretends that he has cancer and listens to the stories of the people who really do have cancer. And there he meets a girl named Marla. Marla also goes to support groups that she is not a member of, meaning that she does not suffer from the disease in which the support group was formed around. And Marla's he's very interested in Marla, though he claims throughout the book that he's not, but he is. One of the exercises in one of the support groups is that they have to cry. They have to hold each other and cry. And the narrator is unable to do this. And he blames Marla for this. Obviously, it's not Marla's fault. It's the narrator's inability to feel, to be aware, to be conscious of the world. He's so stuck in this routine that other people have developed for him that he can't make those emotional connections to himself or to others. But anyways, he blames Marla, and they agree to attend different support groups so they don't have to see each other. But yet the insomnia returns to the narrator, and he doesn't know what to do. It was at this time that he meets a guy named Tyler Durden. Tyler is a mysterious, free spirit, confident, exciting, charismatic person. And he kind of brings some light, like a spark into the narrator's life. You can see here what he says about Tyler Tyler Durden. I love everything about Tyler Durden, his courage, his smarts, and his nerve. Tyler is funny and forceful and independent, and men look up to him and expect him to change the world. Tyler is capable and free, and I am not. So he sees everything in Tyler Durden that he does not see in himself, and that connection is real and immediate. And as luck or disluck, unluck would have it, the narrator's condominium explodes. And he loses all his possessions, and he talks about all his possessions that he had, the couch and the chairs and the refrigerator and the lamps and the rugs and all of these things that he's meticulously decorated his condominium with. They're all gone. And you can see here that maybe he says it's only after maybe we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. I think that even becomes a slogan, a tagline for the movie. It's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. And so with no place to live, he contacts his friend Tyler and says, would you mind if I camped out at your place for a little bit till I figured things out? Tyler says, that's fine, but you have to do one thing for me. You have to hit me as hard as you can. The narrator is not a violent person. He doesn't really want to do this, but Tyler keeps pushing him, and they're in the back of this back parking lot. And finally, the narrator punches Tyler, and then Tyler punches the narrator back, and they have this little fight in this parking lot until they're exhausted. And when they're done, they both realize that they kind of enjoyed this. They kind of enjoyed this feeling of being alive, of doing something chaotic or not expected, and the feeling of energy and of action, of doing something, actually doing something, was exciting to both of them. And so they start out to form a fight club of similar people who might live such routine lives that they might need this moment of feeling more alive, feeling excited, feeling chaotic, feeling that they're doing something, taking action for themselves. So they form this fight club with some other people in the area that want to do this. And I think this is Tyler saying this. I see in the fight club the strongest and smartest men who've ever lived. I see all this potential, and I see squandering. An entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables, slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy stuff we don't need. We're the middle children of the history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives. We've been all raised by television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, and we won't. And we're slowly learning that fact, and we're very angry. So again, there's this deference to these historical events that kind of that brought meaning to previous generations' lives. That was like the redeeming moment in their lives of something that they did that was great, that was something larger than themselves, bigger than themselves, more important than their own lives. And this generation didn't have that. And they were realizing that really this is all there was. So Fight Club begins in their community, and it begins to spread around the country. People have heard about this, and they begin to form their own fight clubs. And again, these are secret clubs where people fight each other, and you can see the rules here. Everything they do has rules, which is interesting to me, that the concept of a fight club is to be chaotic, is to break out of things, break out of the norm, and yet they still have rules. So yeah, there's a lot of people around the country who have the same feeling as the narrator has. So meanwhile, because Fight Club has kind of taken over the narrator's life, he stopped going to all the support groups. He's kind of lost contact with Marla until one day Marla calls him and says that she has taken some pills, not really enough pills to kill herself, but that was the intent. And so the narrator runs over and rescues Marla and brings her home. And so Marla, Tyler, and the narrator are living together. And they all have interesting relationships between the three of them. And we kind of get, as Fight Club spread, it kind of takes, it kind of takes this anti-consumerism attitude. Tyler kind of leads this. And here's another quote by him: "You're not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank. You're not the car you drive. You're not the contents of your wallet. You are not your khakis. You are all singing, all dancing crap of the world." So again, this is, as we talked about earlier, with Palahniuk's themes of all his books, really about this pain and sad things that he writes about. And so this realization that they have that, they try to get a good job and they are try to earn as much money and they try to have nice things and they live in a nice place and they have a nice car and all these things, but this really isn't who you are. And in fact, who you are isn't very appealing. And so with that realization, there's this idea to create what's called Project Mayhem. And the goal of Project Mayhem is to really bring down modern civilization. Like, is there something that these groups of members of the Fight Clubs around the country can do to change really how people live, fundamentally change how people live their lives? And again, Project Mayhem has rules. And I like this last one here: "You have to trust Tyler." So Tyler Durden, again, becomes almost like a godlike figure amongst all the people who are part of Fight Club, which again is very interesting when the point of Fight Club is to destroy this, the idea that you have to do what other people tell you to do, or that there are those of us who are more important than others of us. And all of these people in Fight Club always listen to Tyler. He's a godlike figure in their organization. And you see here this quote too, another quote about the singing and dancing crap of the world. "You're not special," he says. "You're not a beautiful and unique snowflake. You're the same decaying organic matter as everything else." This was really the first time the word snowflake has been used to identify people who struggle with not being special. And it's been used a lot lately, the idea of snowflake, of people who are offended easily. And Palahniuk uses it here for the first time, really in that context, to talk about Project Mayhem. And then there's a twist in the story. Marla, who again is living with Tyler and the narrator, reveals to the narrator that Tyler and the narrator are the same person. In fact, I shouldn't say that Tyler really isn't a real person. Tyler is an hallucination of the narrator that's caused by his insomnia. And in fact, most times when Tyler appears, especially at the beginning, Tyler appears when he is, on that line of being awake or being asleep. By the way, that, there's so much depth in that analogy as well, of are we going through life awake or are we going through life asleep? With this case, there really is no difference between the two. But Tyler is simply a part of the narrator. He's in the narrator. So he's an hallucination of the narrator. He's not a real person. And so when people see Tyler and they meet Tyler, it's really the narrator they're meeting in the physical sense. It's Tyler in the psychological sense of the narrator. And so while all of these things happened already, the creation of the Fight Club, the blowing up of the condominium, the spreading of Project Mayhem, all of these things were developed by the narrator, not by some other character named Tyler Durden. So the main plan of Project Mayhem then is to blow up a skyscraper. Um, and so all the members of Project Mayhem, which are members of fight clubs from around the country, build these homemade bombs to put into the skyscraper to blow it up. The idea is this: only after disaster can we be resurrected. It's only after you've lost everything that you're free to do anything. Nothing is static. Everything is evolving. Everything is falling apart. And so that dichotomy between what things are evolving and things are falling apart is very interesting to think about. And again, apply it when you apply it to the world in which we live today, or the world of the 90s, when there really wasn't anything of meaning being done by lots of people. So what do they consider evolution in the culture and the society, and what do they consider things falling apart? And you hear the term falling apart a lot. You know, like a lot of people talk about, this is the downfall of our country, this is the downfall of a generation, this is the downfall of our society. And so we have to think about what that means. It's weird how there are some things that one person, it's the same event or the same idea or the same concept that one group of people would think is evidence of the culture evolving, while another group of people think of the same thing as evidence of the culture falling apart. And I think we're kind of stuck in that. We're kind of stuck there today, but I don't want to talk too much about that. But anyways, the plan: blow up a skyscraper. The idea is Tyler has recognized that, you know, he's going to blow up this building. He's going to die. He's going to be a martyr for this anti-consumerism, change the world movement. And the narrator realizes at this time that if Tyler dies, then he dies as well. And so he tries to go about stopping Tyler from blowing up the building. And again, Tyler and the narrator are the same person. So he's trying to stop himself from doing this horrible thing. The chase between Tyler and the narrator ends up on the rooftop of this building, where the narrator and Tyler are there, and there's a tense moment. And then suddenly Marla shows up with members of a support group that she's a part of. And at that moment, Tyler disappears. He's gone. And so with Tyler gone, time running out, the narrator braces for his own death, but the bomb malfunctions and does not blow up the building. And while the narrator has already come to the conclusion that he's going to die, he makes really the first decision of his own in many, many years by trying to commit suicide with the gun that he held on Tyler Durden. The narrator wakes up in a mental hospital. He thinks it's heaven, and he has an argument with God about how things are, which is both humorous and insightful. And then the mental hospital employees are taking care of him, and they reveal that they too are a part of Project Mayhem and are waiting for the day that Tyler Durden returns. And that's how the book ends. So, again, I want you to think about all of those questions from that earlier slide. It's a very, the story causes you to be very introspective of who you are. So hopefully you do that in your analysis, and it's not just simply an analysis of the culture event, but also there's the question in the analysis about like, what did you learn, or how does this help you understand the world in which we live? So hopefully you get into that. I've also included a video. There's a guy who came up with like some life-changing philosophical thoughts about that he learned from Fight Club. So I've included that video that you can look through as well. A lot of the things that I just said are included in that. But good luck with this analysis. And as always, I'm here for any questions. But until next time, thanks for watching.